Hello and welcome to this session on art in nature education. My name is Sonali and I work at the 𝗘𝗿𝗆𝗍. At 𝗘𝗿𝗆𝗍, we connect children to nature through birds in many fun and exciting ways, and especially using tools like art and play and games as different ways for people to connect with the natural world, especially children. Today's session is, as you know, on art and nature education, and we have three very exciting speakers with us today as part of our panel. All three of them doing very diverse work and using art and nature and combining them in their education work. Working in schools, with communities, and like as Veena is a performing artist. So we'll get to know them and their work in just a little bit. Am I audible and visible? If you just do a thumbs up if you can see and hear me, and if you can't at any point, just let me know in the chat. Okay, great. I'm just going to share my screen to get started and tell you a little more about what we're up to today. Can you all see my screen? Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is a theme that I think is very close to us because we also use a lot of art in our, and try to use a lot of art in our work, and truly believe in its power to connect with people and connect people with each other and nature. So a little bit about 𝗘𝗿𝗆𝗍. As I already told you, basically it's very simple. We want as many people, children, adults, communities as possible to look at the birds around them, start bird watching, and use that as a stepping stone to connect with nature and the natural world. How do we do this? We mainly through content training and outreach. So we develop different learning tools and materials that educators, parents, teachers can use to teach their learners about Indian birds and get them to start bird watching. And these materials are available in 10 languages, most of them free for download on our website. If you would like to explore and check them out, they are available in previous recordings, and we'll share some links with you later in this session. In terms of training, we have a special workshop called How to Be a Birding Buddy, in which we initiate maybe non-birders or beginners in educators. Nisha, could you just mute? Yeah, beginners. As part How to Be a Birding Buddy basically is a capacity building for educators and teachers, or anybody who's interested to connect children with the natural world. We help them get started with some ideas and tips and tools or the basics of this. We've done several of these workshops over the last few years, and this current session that we are a part of is a longer term engagement on the theme of bird and nature education in India, and we will be doing these online sessions more regularly. We also have a handbook for bird educators, which is a sweet little, very nicely illustrated book with a lot of ideas, tips, projects and activities that educators can use in teaching about birds, specifically in the Indian context. So please check that out on our website. And stay tuned for this series. This is the second in the series. We had one last month on community building and nature education, and this is the second one. And we don't know what we're going to do next, so we would love to hear from you as well. And we just want to create a space for educators in India that are working on themes like nature, especially birds. So please stay in touch with us, interact with us, tell us what you want. And we want to create this community together. So welcome to this session. That was a little bit about us. I have my colleagues with me here today as well. We have Abhisheka, Garima, and Misha. So that's the early bird team, and I will hand it over to our speakers to just introduce themselves and their work to us. This is Grace. Grace, just a note, I've added more slides with more of your pictures, so there are more than 3. Yeah. Go ahead, Grace.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Grace Paljor from Kashmir. I run a school. For the past 22 years, I've been managing this school called the 𝗕𝗿𝗆 International Academy. And from this picture, you can see, all the kind of activities that I've been doing with the kids, and especially bird-related projects. So, living in a place and running a school in a place like Kashmir, how can you not, have nature as part of the education? And I really am having such a, I just can't say like how these 22 years have just gone by, because teaching and learning along with the kids has been, so fun for me. And like, I try to conduct nature-related activities with the kids and try to correlate it with the syllabus, as well as, have outdoor education programs with them, like have camps with them, and especially, teaching the kids like how to care for nature, how to, segregate your trash, how to, maybe you can show the next slide. So like recently I had this project called, turning trash to treasure. So our, since you all know, J&K has been made into a union territory. And so earlier we used to have the black-necked crane, which was the state bird. But then since it is, it's from Ladakh, so we had to come up with a new state bird. And then the 𝗕𝗿𝗆 pheasant was selected as the state bird of the Union Territory. So, we had, for World Environment Day, we had the kids, collect old cans, and what you see over here is, like nowadays, how we all order online, and then we have that black casing, that plastic bag has been made into this bird, and it has, all the detergent liquid cans inside it. So everything is just plastic, the bottle, the beak that you see. So I just try to, relate everything that they do in their everyday lives, as well as, what they learn in school. So it's really fun for the children as well, and as well as for the teachers, so that it's not only our education is not only textbook oriented, but it is all connected, with their surroundings, with the flora and fauna, the rich biodiversity that Kashmir has. So we can, correlate everything. So that's a little bit about me. And something that my highlight was that I came up with, a compilation of rhymes and folk tales of Kashmir. And I could, compile, I wrote poems, which is related with the seasons, the cultural life of Kashmir. And then I could also, add folk tales of Kashmir related with birds, which I will read to you towards the end. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a few pages of the book that you can see in the slide.
Great. We can't wait to hear these stories from you. We're very excited about that. Thank you, Grace. We have Veena. Veena, shall I play the video? Would you like to say anything before? Veena, are you there? Okay, maybe she's having a bit of trouble. I'll just jump to Tallulah's slides in the meanwhile. I hope you can all still see my screen.
I need to make Veena the co-host so she can unmute herself.
Okay.
I did unmute Veena now. She should be able to speak. But I'm not able to start the video though.
Oh, no, I will start the video. I will start the video. I'll go to the hero video. Yeah. Can you all see the video? Okay. They need to hear the sound, right, Veena? Then I have to share the audio. Okay. I think I didn't share the audio. I'll just do that again.
While that's happening, hello everyone. My name is Veena Basavarajaiah. I'm a Bangalore-based movement artist. This is a small trailer from the movement installation we did in 2 places, National Gallery of Modern Art and 𝗬𝗍𝐶ity. You can just watch this. This was a piece that explored the abundance and the inadequacy of water, especially in urban spaces. We did this ironically in Bangalore in the year where we were facing drought. And we did this installation on these places where they had fountains and urban spaces where water was used for ornamental purposes or decorative purposes. And we looked at the discrepancy in the distribution of water, amidst different human beings and nature and different living creatures also. You can pause the video, Shunali. This was another project that we did at a place called Malhar. It's a community in Bangalore.
We want you in, got to have you with us. We want you in, want you with us. We want you in, got to have you with us.
Wow, that was so lively and really nice.
This was a project where the whole community came together. So you see the youngest ones and members, people of all ages being part of it in different ways, from composting and recycling and upcycling. So it was called a green jam. So I did the choreography for some of the poetry that was composed by a musician. His name is 𝗕𝗿𝗆𝗆. So, and the students got to interact with their living space, the nature around them, appreciate insects and the critters and all the creatures, just create work that resonates with their immediate environment also. The next video.
Would you like me? Yeah, I'm just opening that video. It's not on the internet. So.
Sure.
I'll just reshare my screen. Yeah. Can you all see? Yeah. Lovely.
This was a movement workshop that was done actually at the Indian Music Experience. And this is heavily influenced by, inspired by the bird song exhibition that's happening at this, which is curated by Early Bird, NCF, right? So I collaborated with a friend of mine. Her name is 𝗦𝗽𝗆𝗆 𝗕𝗶𝗆. She's a musician, and she was inspired by the exhibition, which is really fantastic, and different kinds of bird sounds are introduced to people, and she kind of composed different songs, and we kind of created a workshop around bird songs and why they sing songs and what are the different kinds of movements that they do when they sing songs. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can feel the energy. I mean, movement is so much a part of nature. There's no nature without movement, and it's nice to see that captured. Words are like not enough most of the time too. So it's nice to thank you, Veena. I'll just share my screen again for us to see Tallulah's photographs. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Veena. These are some photos from Veena. I'll just skip ahead. Wow. Cool. Thank you. Tallulah, you can go ahead. Tallulah, are you there?
Tallulah is muted.
Oh.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, can hear you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tallulah Dsilva. I'm from Goa. I'm an architect by profession, passionate about promoting mud as the most sustainable material. Besides that, of course, my other passion is working with children. My tryst with working with children began more than 12 years ago, when I was eager to share my own childhood experiences of exploring the wild, as well as that of my children with the neighborhood children. So it began with taking the colony kids out of their comfort zones and away from their screens into bird watching in the neighborhood areas. And that slowly grew to doing various exercises with the children, doing little street plays, something called poster play, where we would give a message to people in a given community or in the forest areas about not teasing animals at the zoo, of being sensitive to animals. And largely, of course, it was finding and discovering birds of the neighborhood. And in no time, in about 6 months, we'd explored so much of Goa, seen so many birds. And the children that were ordinary, where most of them were found to be academically weak, were rattling off scientific names of birds. And it just was sort of built my convictions that it is our responsibility to engage children with nature as far as possible. And if you look at like a farmer's child, he's not, he or she, they're not referring to books and complex terminologies, but everything is done from observation and practice. And I think that is very important. I then got opportunities to work with school children. And I started something called the Traveling Dome, which was essentially promoting the idea of the outdoor learning module. So some of the interns from my office fabricated this geodesic dome costing less than 2,000, made of pipes. And we use that as a marker for an outdoor classroom. So we've taken it to various locations to teach children about ecology, about nature, did various activities, right from leaf pounding exercises, collecting things that we find in nature, seed pods, flowers, and various other things. Then, of course, it progressed to college programs where I had an opportunity to teach about disaster, climate change, and we did that using scrap material to make boats. And of course, this essential part of my engagement with children is also activism, where children are encouraged to be the voice in various forms, whether it is performance, whether it is poems, dancing, or making little messages. Some of the pictures illustrate the very well-known double tracking project where people have been lending a voice, where people's lands have been slated to be taken over by the government. So there's this no coal movement, the Save Moreland campaign that the children were engaged with. Thank you.
Thank you, Tallulah. Thank you so much. That's all from our PPT. I think, thank you all for joining us and taking time out to do this session with us. I was really excited to, as I learned about your work, and I actually have a lot of questions for you all about it. So just for everybody's understanding, there are a few like a sort of discussion that we have with some questions that I have prepared for Grace, Veena, and Tallulah, after which we'll open it out to your questions. You can also type questions in the chat as and when you think of them, and we'll get to them later in the session. So yeah, I'll just jump right in. So you'll have all in some way, shape or form used art and nature as complementary in your education. What triggered that? I mean, you told us how you started and about your journeys a little bit, but is there anything that you would like to add about how these two things came together in your work, and or like how it has been different from education work that you do, say, without the use of storytelling or movement, or you can just jump right in. Anybody can take the question as and when you.
For me, I can say is, especially being in a place like Kashmir, where you're surrounded by the towering Himalayas and the lush forests, the amazing flora and fauna, then it's like, how can you not, use those components in your education, where you learn about, in the foundational years, only the children start learning about all the types of trees and the birds and the animals, So when you have all these, components around you, so how can you not? And especially for me, like what I found was the textbooks, all the material that they contained, the content was made for rest of India. For example, they have trees like the people tree mentioned, and a poor Kashmiri child hasn't seen a people tree, So that is something that triggered me, that why they should learn about the chinar, they should learn about the life cycle of the pine tree or the dragonfly, things like that. So then I started doing, projects with them and gave them worksheets and, just little projects to do on their own. So and even art and craft, it just, like I had to find the craft doing with the walnut shell, things like that. So it just became a part of it.
Yeah.
And I also think it's my upbringing, Yeah.
growing up in Kashmir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah, it's,
I think for me, it was basically when I was engaging with children for the first time, I found that just observing, going around in nature, children had a way of connecting. You know, they would see something, ask questions. One of them would collect feathers and put them together, and we would try identifying it. So I think art has a way. It's like a language, and it has no barriers. And among children, even if children don't know a language to speak, they somehow communicate, right? So
yeah.
I feel nature as well as art has this seamlessness about it, a friendliness about it, which children immediately embrace.
Yeah.
The second part is when I started, going to schools to talk about, I was coordinating the Kids for Tiger program, which is a national level program. And I discovered that the city children knew everything about books, or knowledge from books. They knew about the species from South America, but had very little knowledge about local species, and it made me understand that gap. And we have the mighty Western Ghats here. And it was sad that many of the city children didn't know about the local species, the lesser known species. So then I began taking, besides doing PPTs in the school and showing pictures, I started doing nature trails for each and every school. So in every academic year, we would take them to one of the waterfalls or one of the forests in Goa. And I think that was amazing in a sense where children began to connect to what is there in their backyard and understanding the rich biodiversity that we have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Veena, would you like to?
I think my story is slightly different because I've trained in Bharatanatyam predominantly, which means I'm city bred and I'm from Bangalore. So most of art movement especially happens in controlled spaces in studios. So, but there are stories about flowers and bees and birds, and there are so many of these stories, but there's this representation. But I felt that the dancers had a major disconnect with their reality. I feel that is because of the disconnect with nature in many ways. So for me, when I came in touch with people who are tuned to nature in many ways, it opens up a different world. Though there are trees and though there are birds, I feel like, for example, one person who really changed my life that way is 𝗕𝗿𝗆 for sure, because she has a way of, for me, all birds were just birds, but she kind of pointed out that there are these different colored birds and different shaped birds and different, like a whole world opens up, right? So I feel it was, and also I worked in the school called, an alternative school called Center for Learning, which is situated in the midst of nature. And I feel that art was, for me, art practice was very disconnected with nature until I came face to face with it. I was in it. I was with the soil. I was with the trees. I was with the birds. And I think that shifted my art practice quite a lot.
Wow.
And that shifted how I engaged with children, how I engage with collaborators, how I engage with my own art practice also. Wow.
That's really that's a journey of growth, I think. And so much of what you all said, I think I sort of that came out, something that came out strongly in the work is also similar to what Veena just shared, is of this local context. Like you were seeing, you just see bird, and then once you start to like spend time and observe and feel that connection, it starts to change just your entire, like you have a new lens or like a new way of seeing almost. And that's great. And something that I found really strong in all of your work is this bringing in the local context. Like some of the things that I read in some articles about Grace and Tallulah that stuck with me, like Tallulah, you said that the education is so centralized and that it's devoid of local context and some almost unrelated to the everyday lives of the learners. And Grace, you've also done so much work on the biodiversity that you've talked about, but this is not captured in textbooks in the schools that you're teaching. So yeah, even in our sessions, kids, you talk about birds and they're telling us about bald eagles or snakes, they know anaconda, but they don't know the Indian rock python, or they don't know the the hornbill, which are our endemic species and stuff. So how do you, like, how important do you think this local context is, and how do you all bring this into your work or to your teaching or your movement practice? You all are so varied that I have to say so many things, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
So basically, the pandemic, earlier, of course, prior to the pandemic, I was already doing this experimenting with the learning module called the outdoor learning class. So, and the traveling dome, where essentially you were taken out of the classroom, like Shantiniketan, right? You would sit under a tree or experience, smell, see, feel. It's more sensory. So I think that is important. And then, of course, that went on to something called the backyard class, where I would work with the neighborhood children irrespective of which school they went to. So there were always mixed groups. And I found that I discovered that one of the things that was interesting was when you club together children of different ages and different backgrounds. Otherwise what happens is, let's say a given city school will have maybe, let's say, the only privileged, group of students. But when you mix them up, there's learning from different people or individuals. I also found I got a lot of insights when I was working with some architecture students in tribal areas. And I found that the children from tribal communities had a wealth of knowledge, but they were limited to not knowing English, let us say, and that was the only drawback. And so I think bridging that gap is important. And the backyard class or a traveling dome where you go outdoors in your backyard and you learn and see, I think is the first contact, which is very, very needed and important. And I think NCERT books do have a lot of exercises where they do ask, for local experiments or in-house experiments, certain things to do with the children. But I think when you integrate art, there's a lot more that can be achieved. And I would simply say that, even if you're in a classroom, let the teacher step out. And there's everything, even if it's a city school, there's so much biodiversity. Let's say when you walk down a road and there's a drain, there are insects, there are weeds that we consider to be, something that we are generally indifferent to weeds, right? But there's so much, and how important are they for bees, right? So step out of the classroom, and that's the world outside that every child needs to connect.
Lovely.
Yeah, I feel, since all of us, in our country, we follow the NCERT framework of the curriculum, which is basically in all the state boards. And then it's regionalized to every state. So, like I was asking our JK board, the people in the academic division, why don't they have, like in-depth, knowledge for the children? So they said that we are given directions that we can add only 10% from each region. And, our nation is so blessed. It's in its diversity. It's so unique. But the thing is, it's so difficult to, put everything that together into a textbook. So I think with the NEP 2020, I kind of see, some ray of hope where we can, contextualize and, we have that freedom of, bridging that gap, and especially with the inclusion of the mother tongue for the foundational years. So I kind of, my project of the 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗆 𝗕𝗿𝗆 series, my book, it kind of, came up with that, because like when I was teaching the children about the names of the birds and everything, and then I found that there was a local name for every bird, most of them actually. And then I thought, why is it not taught to our children? So then, like we all learn, okay, 10, 20 names of birds in LKG, UKG, whatever. So why don't they learn in their own mother tongue? You know, so that's something I have added in my 𝗕𝗍 𝗕𝗶𝗍 series. Like I've added birds, insects, flowers, and trees in English, as well as the Kashmiri script, and it's Romanized. So because I'm a non-Kashmiri speaker, I'm actually from Ladakh. So, but then because I've lived so long in Kashmir, I was born there, and then I love Kashmir, you know. So I just want the children, you know, to appreciate, you know, and just take pride in their heritage. So I kind of like just feel that as teachers, we have such a big responsibility, you know, and yeah, it's, we need to do
And
it. I
Grace,
think same thing is done, you know, in the rest of India as well. Will be so awesome.
Yeah. Grace, one thing that you said about local birds, even in Goa, we have birds which have specific Konkani names. And the Konkani names also indicate the behavior. Like the kingfisher is called 𝗘𝗶𝗍𝗕𝗏, which makes a lot of sound. And therefore you tell a child, you know, don't behave like a 𝗘𝗶𝗍𝗕𝗏. You know, so we need to connect, you know, to children with local names. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, there is a lot of humor, and it captures the culture of that region, and gives you a sense of the people as well, and their connection with Veena, would you like to add anything?
I'd like to share kind of anecdote. I think I worked with a bunch of children. I cannot call them students because I think they're my collaborators in some ways, because they taught me a lot. It was a small village in 𝗘𝗿𝗆, which is run by 𝗦𝗽ᵉ 𝗕𝗏. She is a very well-known illustrator, botanical illustrator. And she trains the children to, she works with the children to also do illustrations. So they go and observe and they they are trained to draw and paint by observing their natural habitat. And when I did a movement workshop with them, so usually when I work with children and I say, okay, take a shape of a flower, they usually take like one, like very, very cliched shape. But because they work with orchids, their body represented so many different shapes. So their flowers were looking that way and this way, and you know, and they had names. They knew the names of those flowers also. So I had so much to learn. So I feel that the fact that their knowledge comes from their land and their soil and their world was really something that I learned a lot from the children.
Definitely, yeah. Wow, that's great. That's really cool, actually. Yeah, and I think we all do definitely try to find more ways to contextualize, as one of you mentioned, contextualize the education, because it's the only way they can really connect with what's around them. And the sense of pride is so important to inculcate that, to, you know, move towards a more mindset of more protection or conservation, or just even love and compassion. And thank you for that. And the next thought I have, I'm going to share the thought. I would love to hear what, you know, in your experience, what your experience has been about it. Because personally, and maybe in the best case scenario or in an ideal world, art and nature is actually free. You know, you can't copyright a bird song or stop somebody from looking at touching a tree or moving and dancing and singing. So these any art form, or even like connecting with nature and being in nature, is the access to it is free. So in that sense, like in my mind, in an ideal world, it is kind of like a great unifier and a great equalizer. Because you don't need to come from privilege to enjoy sitting under a tree, or to draw a tree, or you don't have to have great amounts of money to dance or sing, you know, about birds or listen to bird song. So what is your take on this about nature and art, maybe, you know, being a sort of equal maybe platform for learning and change in your experience? Yeah. Any thoughts on this?
So I work with for a long time, especially after the pandemic hit us. I found a lot of kids from the neighborhood which were getting into delinquency, had no access to online education, and slowly brought them under an umbrella called the community classroom. And it's become so popular now over the last more than 2 years. And it began with, of course, picking up the children who had less, but also we had a lot of kids who were going to other private schools who were part of the program. So what used to happen is getting the kids together was transformational for me and transformational for each of the students, because let's say there was one boy, okay, he was so scared to step out in any grassy patch. And he was scared that everywhere he stepped, there would be a snake or an insect, and he was terrified. Because, of course, he had lived in a confined comfort zone, so to speak. But the other children, who were always running wild, let's say more like tribal children, they were out running around into the backyard. We have a lake nearby, so we would often go to explore. They would be diving from 6 meters down into the water body. And slowly the children who didn't know, had a fear for water, they all sort of connected and they all learned to overcome their fear. They all learned about the local biodiversity there. The other kids knew, there was some set of kids who knew, okay, that there is a monitor lizard, there's a crocodile, there is a porcupine from the scat. They knew which were the berries which were edible. Who taught them? I think nature is the greatest teacher. And they'd learned from exploring and spending so much time in the wild. And the rest of the children followed suit. They learned to overcome their fears, remove the layers of inhibition. And but it is also important that you have a certain amount of discipline. And then some of the children gave that back to the children who were not disciplined, and so many other values. So I think this exchange is important. And nature is a way of teaching. There's no definition. We should allow it. We should be free. And we should not hesitate. We should not have any inhibitions. We have gone to different areas. We have learned about tidal currents. We have learned about, certain biodiversity, which we don't learn from books. There is a ong slug, which we find on the beach, which is not documented in any books. And we found that the local community collects it and eats it like meat in their local dishes. They have a particular name that they call, they call it 𝗘𝗿𝗆. Chikkal means mud, mas means meat, so there's so many things that you learn just from being out there. And I think therefore it should not be structured, but there should be a compulsory module in every school that gives the freedom to the teacher to do an outdoor class, take the children outdoors, as much as possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, on that same note, like Veena, you've done so much work. You've done work with very different, very different audiences. School children, organizations, adults, differently abled learners as well. So, what in your experience, what do you think about this access to art and nature as being able to transcend, privilege or different demographics, and maybe even social inequalities that would separate us otherwise?
I mean, when you send me this question, when you say nature and art is free for all, it really made me question, is it? Because like, for example, not everybody has access to forests, especially in a city. Like, if you have to enter parks, there are timings, right? Even if you go to a park, you have to walk in a particular path. We can't jump into like lakes and right now you look at Adivasis themselves being deprived of their own land, and corporations owning resources. Like, I'm like, it really boggles me, right? How can somebody own land? What does it even mean?
Yeah.
Right? Who does the earth belong to? It's a big question that way. And I would like to believe that art is for all,
Yeah.
But as a practitioner, I have found that art is a very hierarchical thing in many ways. It's a privilege. Yes, we all have the ability to move, right? That's a fundamental right. We can express through music and dance and everything. Just like, just give me a second. But I feel that there are, just one second.
No problem. Grace, do you have any experiences? Because I actually find it's actually very interesting to have both you and Tallulah here as part of the same panel on this theme, because you're a principal in a school with a very, mainstream academic setting, and Tallulah has experience in more informal learning spaces. So that contrast is very interesting in this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I, or I think it's better if Veena continues, then I'll jump in.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just finish my thought. I think in the ideal world, art and nature or any form of knowledge should be free for all. It should not be privy to a few set of people. Few people should not own information or knowledge or resources or anything. I feel the way in which equality and equity and sharing of resources can become part of our thoughts is through education. And I feel art is part of that awareness building. And I feel we should use knowledges as tools to make sure that, there's equity in the world in terms of sharing resources and being kind to nature and all of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we all here would agree with that. Yeah. We are nobody to be the gatekeepers of any particular art form or knowledge. Yeah. Thank you, Veena. Grace, would you like to?
Yeah, I was, since you say I run a mainstream school, but then I try to do things, out of the box with the children and make them think. That's, basically what I try to, tickle their curiosity. What I think of art is a language which a person or a child, learns to express himself. But unfortunately in schools, like when we ask a child to draw a scenery, the child will draw mountains and a sun and a house and a tree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why does a child always do that? He's conditioned by us teachers, So it's like, I feel that we don't give them that freedom, to express themselves. Let it be music, art, anything, clay, any form, So I just kind of feel that, like, I tell my children, like on nature walks, when I take them out or even during camps, just look at nature, observe the leaves, just observe the rocks, or you won't see, even one of them looking like they're not the same, and same as you also not the same. Your thumbprints are also so diverse and unique. So, so it is just, giving that child that confidence in what he creates. It's the process, it's not the end product that matters, So that's something I feel that has to be enforced all the more. And then of course, nature education really helps that.
I want to add here that, Shonali, when we work with children, we often don't limit them to having only you have a sketchbook and you have a set of colors, or you have some raw material which you can use for any artwork. We just, do the class outdoors with whatever is there. You take the sand as surface and you start, using that as your canvas. You use the water as your canvas, you go to a waterfall and stack stones, use water, whatever elements are there. And you are sort of in a way, performing with nature and creating your own art. Art that is temporary is so beautiful. We don't have to have everything permanent put on a wall or any surface, right? And there is joy in that. And I think for children also to understand that, temporariness, because we are also temporary, inmates sort of on this earth. And when they do that, they understand, that you do something which can be perfect, but the waves come and will wash it away and you have to do it again, and there's beauty in that.
Yeah, that's a really lovely thought. Yeah. Yeah, on that note, maybe like something that they also, I mean, art and nature also are very powerful tools in understanding complex concepts, like you said, like our temporariness or our or just being in the moment. Like nature has no concept of future or past. Everything is in the moment. Like a sparrow wakes up and is not thinking of how to add to its bank account or something. It just wants to eat for that morning and be safe for that day. So it's so powerful in encompassing like some very complex concepts, also processing difficult emotions or experiences. So if there's any, I mean, I just want to know about have you experienced like in your this power of nature and art for healing or to bring about intangible qualities, like it could be a sense of identity or a sense of belonging, or yeah, intangible things that we cannot touch or hold or measure. Or Veena, you've done some work with refugees, and and art is and nature are also powerful in conflict resolution, or yeah, just understanding the world that can be complicated and painful. So have you seen nature and art having this cathartic effect on your learners? Maybe a comparison of if it without it how it would be, and with it how it would be. Sorry for a bit muddled question. I hope you understood what I mean.
I mean, one would, I mean, for me, I think nature has helped me really question the idea of, how do let me consolidate my thoughts. I think sometimes the concept of art is romanticized quite a lot, but artists can get into a rat race as well about, creating work and making work and gaining fame and earning a living, and where's the next project, funding, getting money. So it is no different from a corporate job. It can become no different from corporate job. It can be a regular job where you just have to, like, you're earning to pay your bills. And I think what nature, nature does is it kind of like, you would think when you are in the midst of nature, you will be doing a dance and jumping and leaping, or when you're in front of this ocean, you're like, you're swirling and turning. But I think it brings in a sense of quiet. It just really just shuts everything, and it says, stop in your head. Don't plan. Don't think about how beautiful a movement is or great choreography is, or none of those. It'll just allow you to just be in that moment. It makes you kind of, the insignificance is very humbling. You kind of feel like such a tiny part of the whole, cosmos in many ways. Yes. So I find that to be kind of shifting in many ways. It shifts because I'm sure the body and the mind is processing a lot of things during that time, and it informs your approach to life and creativity and your approach to education as well. But nature in itself it really, like, I mean, shuts you up from all the noise. I find that very empowering, and I've seen that impact artists very powerfully, and forever change their perspective towards art making and education itself.
The perspective, I think that's the key. Gives you great perspective.
I can share with you 3 examples or 3 experiences. One was when I was working with a group of 30 visually impaired children. I am part of an NGO there. And we often do these programs connecting students from other schools to the blind children. And the exercises are simple. The blind children teach about birds because they are so sharp with their hearing, right? So they hear the sound of birds first and they're able to identify or capture a unique characteristic of the bird. And what the rest of the children do is they bring found material from their homes and offer it to the children in exchange. So it builds empathy. It makes them feel that, oh, we thought that a blind child cannot do anything. But here we see a blind child can understand, read using Braille. They have tactile material from which they learn. They're able to walk to school and go by bus to school. And here we are, what are we doing with the abilities that we have? And also spending time with each other helps them to build that bond. So I think nature gives us a chance to have everybody at the same level, to be empathetic. Like every bird or a species in nature has those different qualities, right? There are birds that are nocturnal and animals that are nocturnal, which are easy prey during the day, but they are predators during the night, right? So we learn all about that from these engagements. The second one was very powerful, where we took children for an anti-coal protest for the doubling of the railway track at one location in Goa. And see, what happens is we talk about, oh, coal dust coming into our homes, but we don't really realize how bad it is. And when we reached there on the railway tracks, we just started walking with the children, and we happened to find, coal that had fallen on the tracks. So we started collecting it, and then we made it into a message. And we realized that the engagement made us understand the problems that the community that was living along the tracks had to face day in and day out. Yeah. And of course, the third one was there was this large tract of mangroves which had died over the last 2 years because of a highway project. It is close to Panjim city. And we were part of a community art project there, where we created like a little labyrinth with gauze, cloth gauze. And children participated in it. We made a machan, which was like a performance stage. And we had different musicians coming and mourning the death of the mangroves. It was very beautiful.
Wow.
It was, it was like a bonding of different people, right from artists to children to writers. Everybody came at different times. So I think that all these exercises, experiences are important. And like Veena rightly said, it humbles you because we are so small. And but being tiny, we're also causing a lot of damage, which is irreversible. And it is important to understand, how we need to respect. There are certain things in nature that we just cannot touch, we just cannot interfere.
Very true. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we're 6 o'clock, but there is still many more things to discuss. So just for the audience sake, we'll continue with the session. We hope you'll stay with us. Have a few more questions planned, and we will have also a reading from Grace. So we hope you will stay with us. If you have to leave, there are some links in the chat. Do have a look at it before you go. Yeah. Grace, would you want to add to this topic?
Well, I just would like to add from my experience, like how nature, being around nature, like for the children, I've seen it is really something just enforcing what Tallulah say, how it, creates bonds. And like for the children in Kashmir, and especially the families, about how, strife-torn the valley is. But then, just to get away to a quiet spot and be there in nature, as Veena also said, you just be there and enjoy, and we just forget all the contention, all the conflict. So I think it's very soothing for the nerves and really therapy, for us. So like that's I think a big strength that like we draw from. So yeah, and I think now that awareness is coming, to the people, but like how we really require it. We need that getaway, to just go into the solitude, away from all the devices.
Yeah. And all the, no, definitely it gives us that access to our inner world, I think, which gives us a sort of peace. And makes you sort of more resilient and stronger to be able to deal with the
Yes.
external, what's happening outside of your head or your home or your country, in your country. Thank you. I actually have some specific questions about each of your work. Maybe we can start with doesn't matter actually. Veena, you use movement a lot in your education work, and can you briefly just talk a little bit about the role of movement, or even this symbiotic relationship between artists and ecologists that has existed, I think, from the beginning of time, before we can remember. So
I'll condense it. So a couple of years ago, I was part of this residency. It was called body storming. It's like brainstorming, but you kind of think with your body. So you kind of create simulations or labs where you create, how you create the environment for an experiment in a lab. You give the same instructions, and you put movement artists in it, and you'll see how you respond. So it looks at how you kind of figure out what are the similarities between two knowledges in some ways, and one of the things that I learned is if you look at choreography or dance, the fundamentals of it is time and space, and different thing, different elements of it is time, space, and of course the body or the mass, which is the moving body. And I feel ecology is also about that, right? It is the interaction between different species, it's the interaction between plants and animals, the interaction between living beings with climate, and it is how how these elements interact. If you actually look at a patch of your garden for like observe it for like over a period of a week, it'll be like watching a choreography in some ways. There'll be one creeper which will find its way, and one will dominate, and one with a bigger leaf will really like expand, and then another tiny leaf will find a way of piercing through it or sneaking away through it, or and if it wants flower, it really extends itself. Sometimes it just squishes something and extends itself. So you have the same elements of composition and choreography also. You look at juxtaposition, opposition, synchrony, harmony, and so if you look at it, I think we can have a shared language, is what I feel. I mean, if you boil it down, we are also just beings, right? We are also animals, and it's about composing bodies in space. So I think there are a lot of conversations that are already happening, and I feel ecologists can really inspire choreographies, and I think hopefully movement can help ecologists look at their research in a different way, probably. As part of body storming, one of the things they were looking at is, can we use movement as an alternative to PowerPoint presentations, right? Or an alternative to research papers as a choreography, right? Or a film, because if research papers are about sharing knowledge to the world, what better way than a visual medium? Like instead of a film, can it also be a movement film? So I don't know. Did I answer that question? I hope I did.
Yeah, I think so in a way. I mean, it made sense what you said. They're very deeply intertwined with each other. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of mediums, Grace, you've done. I mean, your collection of folk tales from Kashmir and using storytelling as a medium to bring kids closer to the birds around them or to nature. It's a really powerful and also an ancient way of capturing our experiences, expressing them and relating to each other. So how did you come to storytelling and or using folklore, fables and rhymes in your nature education?
Oh, well, actually, like what I found was when I would give, children projects in school to like, for example, write a folk tale that your grandfather or grandparents know. So then I would get a very poor response. And I would always wonder, what is happening, And then what I realized was the social structure of the families was like changing so rapidly that the culture and the tradition of storytelling in Kashmir had really suffered. And like what used to happen in long winter days, or even when the good old days that we talk about, there used to be a storyteller who would go from village to village and who would recite stories, and or there would be an elder in the family who would be reciting stories, and everybody would be huddled around in their parents and kangri and and listen to these old, folklore. And then like I felt that like it's just being lost into oblivion.
Yeah.
And then I chanced upon a book by Reverend J. Hinton Knowles, which was written in 1886. And it was such a thick volume that a child would never want to even look at it. So I thought, why don't I start adapting, some of those stories and illustrate them, and so that it becomes, accessible to our children.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. And then I came across some stories which have been only, passed by word of mouth. And one of the stories is about a jackal. It's called 𝗕𝗏𝗃.
Okay.
So that was one story. And then there's another story of the 𝗕𝗿𝗿𝗆. The 𝗕𝗿𝗿𝗆 is the streaked laughing thrush. And like this, I learned about this bird from my grandma. And then like when it's about to rain or snow, there's some precipitation, then you hear this bird calling. So my grandma would always say, you can hear the 𝗕𝗿𝗿𝗆, it's about to rain or snow, she would say that. So then I thought, let me just, find out about the folklore about it. And then I found the story about it. So then when all this was just compiling, like I started writing poems. Thanks to the lockdown, I had ample time. So something good came out of it. So then this compilation of these books, the 𝗕𝗿𝗿𝗆 series, has 20 poems, 2 folk tales, and plus the flora and fauna collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to read the story to you.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yeah, we're nearing that time actually. If everybody agree, if you stick around, you will get to hear one of Grace, a Kashmiri folk tale and maybe even a poem from Grace's 𝗕𝗿𝗿𝗆 series. So yeah, that's amazing. So, and also this series, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but this series has also been incorporated into the curriculum of your school,
Yes,
right?
yes, and other schools as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's in my mind, even as an educator, I feel like that's a very difficult step. So it might be easier as a principal of a school, but what was the process like, or what is the challenges in incorporating these methods like storytelling or themes like the streak laughing thrush, which other textbooks would never have? So How did you manage to incorporate it in your curriculum and get 4 schools in Kashmir to also do the same?
Fortunately, the NEP 2020, mandates it, the inclusion of the mother tongue. So that is one, the good side. So because I had the names of birds and animals, insects and trees all in the Kashmiri language as well, along with English. So it's bilingual. And so that was one good thing. But of course, when you see poems which is written about like the samovar or something that you eat, food like the bread, bakar khani or the wazwan, then, everyone gets excited, about that. Why wouldn't they want to include it in the curriculum, So I think I didn't have much of a, difficult time convincing the principals or the teachers. They all, and also the language is very, very simple. Like something like, a noon chai, the salty tea that Kashmiris drink. So it's just a 4-line poem, so it's like something that is,
you can say,
has to do with your everyday life that you see, in a textbook. So it's something that you can relate to. So I think I got an overwhelming response.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really hopeful story for the rest of us. So congratulations on that. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't have a hard time, but because we even like in our own little community of like educators that 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗆 is in touch with, there are many teachers. There's also many informal educators like naturalists or parents who are homeschooling their kids. And so we have an equal representation of people from informal learning environments. And I think Tallulah, you largely work in this space of, like your initiative of community classrooms. You've also been like founded or been a part of many other campaigns and initiatives like Kids for Tigers and the work on the coal mining and that
Save Money campaign,
Save 𝗲𝗏 campaign. So how do you see the role of art in environmental activism or in or the importance of public art or community art installations? Because you've used these as well.
I think it's very powerful because for 2 reasons. One is when you use art or you perform, it reaches out to everybody because there is no otherwise there's no it has a language of its own. And the second part is when children speak up or children express themselves in different ways and raise their voice. I think the voice of children is more acceptable than an adult talking about it, because when it's an adult, you hear traces of anger and intolerance and many other things. Children tend to be very forgiving, and also when you see a child, you immediately are filled with sympathy and empathy, right, and a lot of love and care for the child. So I think that from that perspective, it is very powerful. And whatever form you use, whether it is a street play, whether it is you're using a mix of languages, whether you are doing something very silently, whether you're performing, you're using music, you're just using posters, you're creating something which is temporal. I think everything matters. And I think today we need to give confidence to children because it's the world that they are going to inherit. And we need to give them first an opportunity to connect to nature. I think I'm very thankful to my father who used to take me, I used to just potter around with him in our village in the mangroves. I would often be found sleeping under a mangrove tree with a whip snake hanging around, and that way. But so I think all children need that opportunity, and that experience, because that helps you to bond. If in like the work that Veena is doing is so phenomenal, the work that Grace is doing is so phenomenal. If we don't integrate nature into our enclosed spaces, we are disconnected. How are we going to feel that sense of ownership, the need to protect it because it is under threat, right? So I think it's very important, and art is very powerful. The Save Molek campaign, which was driven by youth largely, okay, it was so powerful because it went out to people. There were a mix of people using different ways. There were writers, there were architects, there were ordinary citizens, musicians, artists. Everybody in their own way was reaching out. And I think the most powerful were the set of artists who were working, ecologists who were working in collaboration, preparing various visuals. There was a whole team that one of my dear friends and mentor, Father Balmax, had a whole group of youth from Chikali who were doing flash mobs on the 𝗔𝗯liche song, and they were going village to village. We also participated in it, So it becomes a non-violent, it becomes a peaceful way of appealing to the inner kindness of every human to protect nature. So I think art is very powerful, and we should allow children to use the language of art in everything that they do.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I mean, I have more questions, but I think we've run past our time, and that's a really good note, I think, to bring this discussion to a close. We'll take some audience questions, but this has been a really good discussion, very enriching, and the power of using these two forces, nature and art, together, I think, has really been brought out from your work. So thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, it just makes people, it connects with people when words fail, and it moves you and makes you feel, and that's its power. And I hope you'll keep continue being a part of our community and sharing the work that you do with us. Everybody else over here as well, we have WhatsApp groups and various ways to stay in touch. So please connect with us on the links. If the audience has any questions, we can take them now. Nisha or Abhisheka, if you'll have been watching the chat, and if there are any questions in the chat, we can take them.
So far, there have been no questions.
Okay.
So if you'd like Grace to read out her poem or story by then, while we wait for the questions, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Grace, would you like to do that? Oh, sorry, I see one question. Are there any learning resources you could point us to, like storybooks, that offer the kind of contextualized education that you spoke about? Okay, we can look into that and share some links, I think, with the participants of this session. But in the meantime, I mean, Grace, please, we've been waiting to hear these stories and poems from you. In the meantime, if you have any questions, do type it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll read the poem.
Okay.
The title of the poem is "There's So Much More Than 𝗦𝗫𝗲s."
Okay.
Do you know there's so much more than 𝗦𝗫𝗲s, crows, and the house sparrow? A flock of starling herald spring. At dawn, whistling thrush begin to sing. Bulbuls, thrush, pigeon, and wren eat berries and insects in the garden. The hoopoe too comes along. Shrill cuckoo calls echo around. Finches feed on thistle seed. Parakeets on fruit trees feed. Golden orioles are a pretty sight. Black drongos catch bugs in flight. Swallows build nests of clay. Woodpeckers peck on trees all day. Parakites circle in thermals warm. Chukars call in sun and storm. More hens and herons watch and wait. Kingfishers dive and catch their bait. Little grebe and coot dive and dip, while ducks and geese swim and nip. Paradise flycatchers are a rare sight. Migratory geese form a V in flight. Blue magpies mimic, chase one another. Jackdaws flock in snowy weather. Now I know there's so much more than 𝗦𝗫𝗲s, crows, and the house sparrow.
Wow.
These birds are all found in Kashmir.
Yeah. You wrote this. Did you write this?
Do you want me to read the story as well?
Ah, sure. I mean, I would
Okay.
love to hear the story. Yeah.
Okay, so I won't read the whole story, but just, I'll read the last part of the story, but just to give you, to start you off. So the story is about 𝗕𝗶𝗶𝗃, about two eggs being laid. And when they hatch, they're two brothers who, are inseparable. They love to, play in the summer. And then I'll just read towards the end what happens. The lush green valley soon became brown, yellow and red, and the leaves began to fall. Some new ducks and birds came from faraway lands. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 asked them, "Did you see my brother?" They just quacked and dove into the water. The days began getting colder and clouds began to cover the sky. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 was hopeful, and in his shrill call chirped for his brother to come soon. His brother had promised that he would return when the snow falls. He chirped, "Fall, O snow, come my brother, come soon." The winter passed, the snowflakes covered the earth, but there was no sign of 𝗕𝗶𝗃's brother. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 still waits for his brother. You can hear the shrill call, "Peep, peep, 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 peep," if you listen carefully before it begins to rain or snow. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 calls, "Shine peto peto, bai yeto yeto." This is in Kashmiri, the last line, which means, "Fall or snow, come my brother, come soon." And 𝗕𝗶𝗃 still waits for his brother to come. So this is the folklore.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
beautiful.
Yeah. Everyone's on mute, but you can hear my claps. Okay.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful, Grace. I mean, I can imagine how the children really, I mean, it's so easy. I've never even been to Kashmir, but I'm imagining the snow and rain and these calls and these interactions. Thank you so much. I'm not sure. I don't know if we got more questions. Okay, we don't have questions. I think this is where we end the session. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful, thank you, Grace, Tallulah and Veena. It's really been a great session with such unique and diverse perspectives. We'll definitely be following your work and would love to, stay in touch, be a part of what we do as well, and continue to engage and interact with each other. Thanks so much for being a part of this. Thank you everybody for joining. There is a link to a feedback form in the chat. Please do fill out the feedback form. Will just take a couple of minutes, but we would love to hear what you all thought of the session, and it would help us curate and build the sessions that will come. And there are going to be more sessions, so stay with us, stick around. We have a mailer where you can get these updates. There's information about it in the feedback form. You can sign up for it. So yeah, please stay in touch, and we hope to see all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.